Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the news from SABA satellite channel from Marib. Here are tonight's top stories. Prime Minister reaffirms social fund independence and expands donor partnership. Foreign Minister discusses political process with United Nations envoy amid rising Red Sea tensions. U.S. Embassy to Yemen stresses countering Houthi threats to safeguard Red Sea shipping and regional security. Welcome back, and to details. Parliament has strongly condemned the Houthi attack on the Indian cargo vessel in the Red Sea, describing it as an act of maritime terrorism that threatens international shipping and regional stability. In a statement, lawmakers said the vessel carrying commercial goods to Yemen's port of Mocha was struck by an explosive-laden boat and sank completely. Parliament accused the Iran-backed Houthi group of deliberately escalating attacks on international navigation, calling the incident part of a broader pattern of maritime piracy and regional destabilization. The statement expressed solidarity with Indian and backed international efforts to protect commercial shipping and ensure freedom of navigation. Parliament also urged that continued attacks on merchant vessels, including shipping carrying food supplies, deepen Yemen's economic hardship, increase the country's isolation, and place additional burdens on civilians. The legislature called on Yemenis to unite behind the armed forces and security institutions to restore state authority and end the conflict, framing maritime security as a critical element of both national stability and international trade. And an Indian cargo vessel carrying essential goods for Yemeni markets has become the latest victim of Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. Although all 14 crew members were reduced by the Yemeni Coast Guard, the vessel and its cargo were lost, highlighting the growing threat to Yemen's economy, maritime security, and global trade. More in this report.
An Indian cargo vessel making its way to the port of Mocha, carrying consumer goods destined for Yemeni markets, was intercepted by the Houthi terrorist militia using an explosive-laden boat. In an instant, what had been transporting essential supplies for civilians was reduced to wreckage in the waters of the Red Sea. The attack sank the vessel, while the Yemeni Coast Guard successfully rescued its crew of 14 seafarers, including 13 Indians and 1 Yemeni. Although the crew survived, the cargo was lost beneath the sea, leaving behind yet another reminder of an escalation that threatens Yemen's food security and commercial supply routes. The vessel was civilian, its destination was a Yemeni port, and its cargo was intended for Yemeni consumers. The consequences of the attack extend far beyond the site of the incident. The loss of the cargo, coupled with rising shipping and insurance costs, is expected to increase the prices of essential goods, placing an even heavier burden on ordinary Yemenis. This attack adds another chapter to the militia's systematic campaign to undermine Yemen's economy, from targeting ports and oil export facilities, depriving the state of its primary sources of revenues, to confiscating salaries, imposing illegal levies, disrupting economic activity, and now threatening vessels bound for Yemeni ports. The methods may vary, but the objective remains the same: to impoverish society, isolate the country, and exploit the suffering of Yemenis as a tool of coercion. While the militia continues to claim that Yemen is under blockade, its actions demonstrate that it is in fact intensifying the blockade. Every attack on a commercial vessel raises maritime risks, compels shipping companies to delay voyages for their vessels, and drives up insurance and transportation costs. Ultimately, these additional costs are passed on to Yemeni citizens through higher prices for basic commodities. This escalation also aligns with Iran's broader strategy of turning the Red Sea and Bab el-Mandeb Strait into arenas for regional leverage and international coercion. Through a militia that places Tehran's interests above those of the Yemeni people, the country is drawn deeper into crisis, whose costs are ultimately borne by ordinary citizens through their food, income, and essential services. The sinking of the Indian cargo vessel underscores that the threat is no longer confined to Yemen. It has expanded to endanger international maritime security, global supply chains, and world trade. With every delay in adopting a firm international response, the militia gains greater freedom of movement, while Iranian influence continues to grow near one of the world's most strategically important maritime corridors.
Prime Minister Dr. Shaya al-Zindani has reaffirmed the government's commitment to preserving the independence of the Social Fund for Development, describing it as a trusted national institution with a strong professional reputation. During a virtual meeting with the ambassadors of the Netherlands and Germany alongside representatives from the European Union, the World Bank and the International Fund for Agricultural Development, al-Zindani discussed expanding donor cooperation to support the fund's future programs. The Prime Minister said the government would continue safeguarding the fund's administrative, technical and financial independence while ensuring transparency and accountability. He added that plans to relocate the fund's headquarters and executive management to the temporary capital Aden are intended to strengthen governance, unify institutional decision-making, and ensure the fund continues its development mission efficiently. Donor representatives reaffirmed their commitment to working with the Yemeni government and the Social Fund for Development, emphasizing the importance of continued coordination to sustain the fund's development programs. The discussions highlighted efforts to maintain international confidence in one of Yemen's key development institutions amid ongoing institutional reforms. Prime Minister Dr. Shaya Mohsen al-Zindani has called for a stronger customs reform during a visit to the Customs Authority headquarters in the temporary capital Aden, underscoring the agency's role in protecting the national economy and strengthening state revenues. During Customs Departments and the Training Center, al-Zindani reviewed efforts to modernize operations, improve border oversight, and enhance customs coalition. He also met participants in anti-smuggling training programs conducted in cooperation with the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. In a meeting with Customs leadership, the Prime Minister discussed plans to improve institution performance, increase revenue coalition, combat smuggling, and reinforce transparency and integrity. He described the Customs Authority as the country's first line of defense against economic threats, emphasizing that curbing smuggling is essential to protecting public finances and supporting government services. Customs officials outlined recent achievements and ongoing modernization initiatives, reaffirming the commitment to implementing reforms aimed at improving operational efficiency and to strengthen the authority's contribution to Yemen's economic recovery. Foreign Minister Dr. Afrah Hazouba has held talks with United Nations Special Envoy Hans Grandberg to discuss the country's political and humanitarian situation, as well as international efforts to address escalating regional tensions linked to the conflict. During the virtual meeting, Hazouba highlighted the impact of continued Houthi attacks on commercial shipping in the Red Sea, urging that the assaults undermine regional security and jeopardize navigation through the Red Sea, Bab al-Mandab Strait, and the Gulf of Aden. She also cited the humanitarian and economic cause of the conflict, pointing to the distribution on oil exports, public services, and humanitarian access. The foreign minister said progress toward peace requires meaningful engagement on political, humanitarian, and economic issues, calling for a greater international pressure to ensure commitments are implemented and to prevent further deterioration. For his part, United Nations Special Envoy Hans Grandberg congratulated Hazouba on her appointment and praised her on his latest diplomatic consultations. He reaffirmed the importance of shielding Yemen from wider regional tensions and advancing an explosive political process capable of delivering lasting security and stability. Foreign Minister Dr. Afrah Hazouba held a phone call with Jordan Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Ayman Safadi to discuss bilateral relations, regional developments, and diplomatic efforts to reduce tensions and promote stability. During the conversation, Hazouba reaffirmed Yemen's condemnation of attacks targeting the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, expressing support for Jordan's security and sovereignty. She also thanked the man for its long-standing support for Yemen and for the assistance and services provided to the Yemeni community living in Jordan. Sadafi praised the Yemeni Foreign Minister on the outcomes of the ministerial meeting hosted by Jordan in support of Jerusalem and its holy sites, including measures outlined in final communique to address what participants described as unlawful Israeli violation in Jerusalem. The call underscores continued diplomatic coordination between Yemen and Jordan on regional security issues while reaffirming the importance of Arab cooperation in addressing shared political and humanitarian challenges. Ministry of Defense has announced a large-scale security campaign across the country's liberated provinces with a practical focus on the eastern governorates of Hadramaut and Al-Mahra as part of its constitutional responsibility to maintain security and stability. According to the ministry, the operation follows a series of highway robberies and targeted killings against civilians and members of the armed forces. The latest attack claimed the lives of soldier Osama al-Radafani and his companions. The ministry said the campaign is aimed at dismantling terrorist sabotage and smuggling networks, pursuing individuals operating outside the law, and strengthen security to protect civilians, secure major roads, and reinforce state authority. The announcement reflects renewed government efforts to tighten security in strategically important eastern regions, where authorities have faced persistent challenges from armed groups and illicit cross-border activities. The Ministry of Defense reaffirmed that the armed forces will continue carrying out their national duty to safeguard the country's security and protect its citizens. The third-day affairs of the U.S. Embassy in El Hope has reaffirmed Washington's commitment to working with the Yemeni government to address security challenges, highlighting the need to counter Iran-backed Houthi threats to international shipping and regional stability. In a statement, Hope said the United States aims to deepen its partnership with Yemen, strengthen ties between the two countries, preserve Yemen's cultural heritage, and support efforts toward a peaceful and prosperous future. He described Yemen as strategically important to Trump administration's national security priorities, citing the protection of freedom of navigation in the Red Sea, preventing the region from becoming a hub for tourism and safeguarding U.S. partners. Hope added that U.S. diplomatic mission will continue supporting the administration's regional priorities and Secretary of State Marco Rubio's diplomatic efforts while confronting threats posed by the Houthis, remnants of Al-Qaeda, and other armed groups that endanger global trade routes. He also reaffirmed U.S. support for Saudi Arabia and regional partners in addressing Houthi attacks and protecting maritime security. That was the news bulletin from SABA satellite channel from Marib. Thank you for watching and have a good time.